Hey everybody, I want to welcome you to our first official flipped classroom homework lesson, homework assignment. So this would be the homework assignment for Monday night, September 23rd. And when you come into class tomorrow, we're going to be working on converting fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. And it looks like we have about 2 days to get this. I think you've done it before, or at least parts of it before. So I'm going to try to present it in a way that I've taught it before and that I understand it, and then we'll work on it in class. And then I'll present it another way with a textbook for Tuesday night's homework, and we'll see if we can all get on the right page, or on the same page. So when I've taught this before, what I've done is I've taken a fraction that everybody knows. Everybody knows the fraction 1/2. 1/2. And I think most of you probably know that the decimal equivalent of 1/2 is 5/10. And this is one we just kind of memorize. But how do we get from 1/2 to 5/10? And how do we get from 5/10 to 1/2? How do we get back and forth between them? So I'm going to show you how I would do it. And maybe in class you guys will have some ways to show me that you would do it when we're in our small groups working on some problems. So to get from 1/2 to 1/2, or 5/10, I take the fraction, and I actually learned this student teaching in a 4th grade classroom. And I've mentioned it in class before, but there's another name for this, but we call it affectionately the house. You put the numerator in the house. All right, so now you have this new problem. And in success time, we've been talking about remembering what the names of all these things are. This one's the dividend, this one's the divisor, and the answer is the quotient. And in success time, we've been practicing dividing. So hopefully most of you are comfortable with dividing at this point. 2 will not go into 1, does not go in. And you've had different teachers tell you different ways to notate that it will not go into 1. You do what you're comfortable with. But I still have a problem to solve. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to add a decimal. I'm immediately going to put it on the roof. And I'm going to add what we call a terminal 0. A terminal 0 doesn't add any value to anything. It's just holding a place so that I can continue to work on this division problem. And most of you probably recognize that 2 does go into 10. It would be 5. 5 times 2 is 10. We subtract and we get 0. And now you can see how we get from 1/2 to 5/10. Hopefully everybody sees that. Now what about the other way around? Well, if I start with 5/10, and this is, I've talked to you guys in class about how to say decimals correctly and how for years and years I fought students on saying them correctly no matter what. And then I watch Khan Academy and he says 0.5, so it's hard for me to argue, but this is part of my argument for saying it correctly. If you say that correctly, 5/10, then you know right away it is equivalent to 5/10. That's what it looks like, 5/10. And hopefully all of you remember from elementary school how to reduce that to 1/2. And if you don't, I will go up here and show you real quick. This is the way I think about it, and I also learned this in that same 4th grade classroom where I learned this. You're essentially dividing by, what's the one number you can divide by and not change the value? It would be 1. You can divide any number by 1 and not change the value. So that's my bad attempt at a really big 1. What will go into, and I guess I should add, any number over itself is 1. So 2 over 2 is 1, 3 over 3 is 1, etc. So that's a little side note down there. So what will go into 5 and 10 evenly? Well, it's 5. So I'm going to divide both of these numbers by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And that's how we get our answer. I don't want you to confuse this with the algorithm, the way we do it, for division of fractions. We're really just dividing by 1. So don't confuse that when we do that later. All right, so let me clean this up so that I can restate my case. Let's try another fraction. Let's try 3/4. I like 3/4, that's a good one. And many of you may know that the equivalent for 3/4 in decimals is 75/100. There are about, I don't know, 5 to 10 decimals that are really good to memorize, and we'll be talking about those in class. It'll save you a lot of work on tests, all kinds of tests, standardized tests, if you have these basic ones memorized. And I'll try to give you a list of those today or tomorrow. All right, so let's go through what we just went through with 1/2. This one may not be quite as familiar with all of you, so please pay attention. All right, so I'm going to write the fraction 3/4. I'm going to build my house. I'm going to put my numerator in the house. And so all that stuff doesn't confuse me. I'm going to go over here and rewrite it. So now I have 3 divided by 4. And I want you to hear the way I said that. 3 divided by 4. Did you notice I read right to left? This is a big pothole a lot of kids fall into on tests when they're handed a calculator. They'll put in 4 divided by 3. And that's not what that problem says. This is 4 divided by 3. And if I was going to write that like this, it would be 4 divided by 3. So don't fall into that pothole. I wish I knew where the eraser is. Oh, there it is. Let's try it. Oh, it erased the whole thing. All right, great. We'll try again. All right, so I'm to this point. I'm doing 3/4. I know it is 75/100. I've gotten to this point where I have 3 divided by 4. Now, 4 will not go into 3, so you can put an X or a 0 or whatever you want. I'm going to put a decimal here and a decimal on the roof. And then I'm going to add a terminal 0. 4 will go into 30. And I'm going to give you a second to think about how many times, because some of you are still a little slow on the multiplication tables. Hopefully you all got 7. 7 times 4 is 28. And I'm going to subtract. And I get a 2. All right, so 4 is not going to go into 2, so I'm going to have to add another terminal 0 and bring it down. 4 will go into 20 5 times. Is this looking familiar? 5 times 4 is 20. I subtract, I get 0, so we're all good. So 3/4 does indeed equal 75/100. Now, how do we get from 75/100 to 3/4? So this is 75/100, and a lot of you would say 0.75, which in most cases is not a problem, but for this, it would be really helpful if you knew that that was 75/100. So that's the fractional representation of the decimal. Now, to take what we used when we were working with 1/2, what number will go into 75 and 100 both evenly? In other words, what fractional representation of 1 can I use to simplify this fraction? Think about money. There's a certain coin I'm thinking of. All right, so hopefully most of you got 25. Quarters, right? 3/4 is 75 cents and 4/4 is $1. Oops, writing the wrong thing. All right, so 75 divided by 25 is 3. 100 divided by 25 is 4. And we arrive at 3/4 is equal to 75/100. Now, before I leave you with this video, I want to show you something looking ahead that I've had up in my classroom for years. And I'm going to take 1/2. So 1/2 is at the top of the circle. I can convert that to 0.5, right? This converts to 50%, which we're not talking about today. I just want you to realize it. 50% is the same as 50 out of 100, and that comes back around to 1/2. Because remember, this line is divided by, out of, divided by, and out of. Both means both of those things. So I want you to be kind of thinking about this wheel, because eventually we're going to add percents, or you're going to have to start working with percents around fractions and decimals as well, and I want you to understand where they fall on the wheel. Okay, so this was your video for today, Monday night, September 23rd. There will be a WSQ sheet you'll get in class on Monday that you should fill out and have ready to show me so that I know that you watched this video. I will address students without the ability to watch video at home or without the time to watch video in school in class on Monday. Thank you very much.